Hey everybody, Professor Steins here, and today we're going to walk through XAMPP and how you can get it installed and running on your computer. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is come out to apachefriends.org, and that'll bring you to the website we're at right now. Now, XAMPP does have kind of a little automated installer here where you can kind of click for your computer and it'll do the auto install. However, that is not how I suggest to install it or how to use it. I have had students try to use it in the past and it works, but occasionally there seems to be some issues, particularly if you have port number conflicts. So I don't usually suggest that you use the little auto installer here, but do keep a note here of the most recent version. Right now that's 7.2.5 or 7.2.5, so we'll need to keep that in mind as we go through the other way. So what I would suggest to do is come over here to click here for other versions, and this will take you to another page here that has some other options where you can kind of download things. These are still the exe installers that were on the first page. So instead what I would suggest doing is come down to more downloads and click on that one. And that'll take you out to the SourceForge website where these things are hosted at. Here you can still choose different versions if you want to go and look for other versions. Most of us are probably going to be wanting XAMPP on Windows, so that would be where we want to go next. And try to find that version number that was on the Apache Friends page, so that was 7.2.5. So that's also going to be the one that has the most hits. So, eventually there'll probably be a new version, 7.2.6 or something, who knows. So, always try to get the most recent version that's available with the highest number of downloads. And that should bring you into a screen that looks like this. Now, of course, the one that was listed on the home page, the exe file, is in here as well. And that is the one that has the most hits. But what I would suggest doing is coming down and getting the XAMPP Win32 version that's the .zip file. That way when you download it you have all the source code files and you don't really have to worry about using the auto installer or anything like that. And if you do have to make configuration changes, I've never really, as long as you do it right, I've never really run into an issue with the software itself. So go ahead and pull down the zip file and download it. It might take a minute. It's 183 meg, so it's a little big. But once you get it, you should get a zip file. Now I downloaded it to my desktop, and what you'll need to do is just go to right click and extract all, and that'll give you a folder like the one right beneath it here that has the XAMPP folder and all the associated files that we're going to need. Now this might actually be in your downloads folder. I don't really use my downloads folder. I kind of just download everything into the desktop. So there's our, it's not the right XAMPP folder. XAMPP, this one. So once you get your folder and you open it up and you can get to the XAMPP folder here, what you're going to want to do is kind of open up a new window here, maybe for your computer, or open this up a little bit and go to your local drive, right click on it, open a new window. So this will be like your C drive of your computer. It's the root directory of your computer. And that's where you're going to want to copy and paste this XAMPP folder. So it's only going to work if it's on the root drive. That's the, just the letter number / It's a little hard to read on the video, I imagine, but you don't really want to run it from your downloads folder or off of your desktop or something, because it's not going to work there. It's only going to work when it's on the root of your drive there, just on the local C. If you have another hard drive or a thumb drive, or you can also put it on there as well. My computer has a second hard drive, localhost. It's a D, just the letter D / So you can put it there as well. It'll be kind of useful if you're working on a desktop and working on a laptop, or if you're moving around between computers a lot. You can put XAMPP on it's got to be on the root drive letter, but you can put it on like a flash drive and hopefully move it from computer to computer. So there can be some issues, and we're going to kind of walk through that a little bit. But once you do get your XAMPP version moved over, mine was on C drive. So once it's on C, you can go into the XAMPP folder and go down and scroll down to the XAMPP control.exe. So open this one up, and it should kind of come up. If it comes up with red errors here, the first thing we should do is we should just try to hit start on these two buttons, on Apache and MySQL. Apache is going to be our web server, and MySQL is going to be our database. There are some other options in here, but we're not going to mess with those. FileZilla is an FTP, Mercury is a mail client, and Tomcat is it's another web server for Java services, I think. So everything, if you've gotten this far and you were able to hit start, and both of these things turned green, and you might have got like a firewall message or something from Windows saying, allow this program to have access on public or private network, and that's fine. You can just click OK. But as long as these two come up green, you should be good to go. Most of what you'll need to be using is going to be in the htdocs folder. So you'll want to have this folder open a lot. And if you really want to kind of test and make sure that this is working, open up your web browser and just type in localhost with nothing on it, just localhost plain, and hit enter, and it should move you to this is off of your local machine. You can also do the 127.0.0.1 because that's your local host address. That should also work as well. And if you were to open up a command prompt and type in ipconfig to figure out what your IP4 address is inside your local network, that'd be 192.168.56.1. Yeah. Oh no, that's my VirtualBox adapter. No, we need the one that's connected to the router. That's this one here. So that's 192.168.22. So 192.168.22. That should also work. So localhost is fine. Shouldn't have to go and use different IP addresses and stuff. But the important part here is that we're serving it through a web server on our local machine. We basically created our admin environment. Also go ahead and check and just click up here in phpMyAdmin, and that you can get into the phpMyAdmin manager here. This will be where we create our databases in the future to connect to our WordPress database. Now if you're stuck and you were red when you got to here and you hit start and none of these things worked, there are going to be some issues that you might have to work through. For example, a lot of students might get Apache to fire up fine and work, but then the MySQL service won't work, and you just hit start and it goes red and it gives an error message. Chances are is that you were using MySQL in another class, possibly ITech 3245 DB principles, and so you don't have that port number, that 3306 port number is not available. It's currently being used on your machine. If that's the case, if you know that you have MySQL installed on your computer, and you can probably check by right-clicking on your start and going to apps and features and trying to look through what's installed on your PC, you'll probably end up seeing MySQL in here or something like that. So if you have finished that course and you're not worried about it, you should be able to uninstall it, reboot your computer, and then come back in MySQL. That port number will now be free, and so this should start up fine. If you want to keep that installation from the other database class and you don't want to destroy it or uninstall it, depending on who you took the course from, you might want to come out to not just Workbench, sorry. We're looking for the MySQL Workbench. Some of the professors like to teach it via command line. That is, you just kind of open up a terminal window like this and you type in MySQLD or something, and I don't have it configured that way on my computer because I usually just use XAMPP. But once some professors taught you how to do it that way. So if that's the way then you probably want to come out and get the workbench. And what this will do, this will look a lot like PHP In fact, it's almost identical. I mean, so much of it is going to be very similar with the databases on the left and the ribbon here across the top. So if you're using the workbench to integrate with your MySQL installation, that's fine. In that case, looking at the control panel, you do not need to start this one here. You'll just use the workbench with the local install that you have from here, from the add features. Hopefully you remember what your root password was when you set up that machine. Actually, I have the workbench already installed, so really what we might be able to do is kick up the workbench and just kind of show how similar these two are. So it's currently running, and I should just be able to kind of create a new connection here and call it local, and it's going to connect over the local host 3306. Root is the local account, is the username account. If we click OK, it should kind of give us the ability to open it up a little bit and take a look. So, yep, I say that, and then it didn't want to work. Well, I might need to, it looks like I need to update my MySQL workbench, or figure out a way that I can go backwards in time with it or something like that. So anyway, it should work, especially if you got the most recent version of Workbench. They're pretty close in how they work, and they usually can integrate pretty well. If that doesn't work, you might have to go with the uninstall method. Unfortunately, that might be the case. Occasionally, Apache will fail as well. Port 80 is sometimes taken by a program called Skype, and some other programs will sometimes listen on port 80. If that's the case, you can try shutting those programs down, coming back and trying to start it again. You might want to go down to your system tray. I don't have it on this monitor, but there'll be a little systray icon down here at the bottom right of your computer. And just try to close out of Skype or close out of some programs that might be using port 80. The NetStat program here in the dashboard will help you kind of figure that out sometimes. It's not perfect, but sometimes you can sort by port number, see what's on 80 or see what's on 443, and hopefully it would give you a name like Skype.exe or something. Then you would know that you would need to shut that down. There is a way to go through and change the port numbers for these. However, I would probably call that a last-ditch effort. You might need to do a couple things here. One would be maybe to go to config and set what your editor is going to be. Because right now, if I kind of just open this up with just Notepad, it's going to look a little bit crazy, right? It's not really well formatted, and no one is really going to know what that means. However, Notepad++ will take care of that a little bit easier, a little bit better maybe, so that we can understand it. It's a text editor that I recommend. So any kind of coding text editor is going to work pretty well here. So under config, change that editor and hit save. You should be able to open up the comp file here and get it formatted a little bit more better. The hashtags here, these are going to be comments, so really most of this file is simply comments. This is the kind of the first line of it's kind of the first line there that actually has a setting associated with it. Some settings are probably going to be commented out, but this is probably when you come in for looking for port numbers, this is a good place to kind of look through. So in httpd.conf, we're listening on port 80, and there'll be another option a little bit further down here where we're going to set up the server to serve back on localhost port 80. So those will be the two places that you might need to change your port number in order to make it work. So you just might need to come in and add port 8080 and scroll back down to here and type in port 8080 under server name localhost 8080. And if it works fine, when you go to start, it should kick up, and instead of having ports 80 and 443 here, you're going to have 8080, which will be the one that we just edited here. So chances are 8080 won't be taken. You know, usually the higher number of ports you go, the less chance you have of a conflict. So just make sure you change that in both spots in the httpd.conf. If you determine that port 80 is going to be the one that's giving you an issue, 443 can cause the same thing, but you would change that in a different conf file. That's the Apache httpd-ssl.conf. And in here, you would just need to scroll down and change the listen on a different port number, 4443 or just whatever. And I do believe that's the only change that you would need to make here. Oh, well, okay, we define a virtual host. We need to add that there as well, 4443. So we didn't make two changes, sorry, in httpd ssl.conf. And again, mostly just comments here with the hashtags on the front and only a few lines of actual configuration. So if you make those two changes, 44443, and we go back and we start and stop it, this time we should get the new port number, and you know that one should be fixed as well. If we're still stuck at MySQL not starting and really just kind of having issues trying to figure out whether our local install is working, or maybe we forgot our password or something to that effect, there is a way that you can change the port number for MySQL as well. So under conf, you would need to open up the myini file, and this will open up again hashtags or comments. And a little bit further down, this is our port number that it's opening up, 3306. You should be able just to change that to 3307 or whatever you need to change. As long as the port numbers match, you'll need to make it two changes here, one for the client to be able to connect and one for the actual server itself to run on. So you want to make sure you make both of those changes there. And again, mostly comments, but if you need to come in, I think that's all that we need to worry about. It's just the two ports at the top. So if we save those and go back to XAMPP and start and stop it again, now we should have MySQL running under 3307. One of the issues that you're going to run into here under that scenario, though, is that now when you go into localhost and you get up your window, if you had to change your port number, you would need to add that port number as a colon to the top. So colon 8080, if we had to make that change to 8080 in httpd.conf, we just hit Control Y, and start and stop it, and it'll show that it's going to work. Didn't work the first time because it was serving over 80, but now that that thing is up and running, localhost colon 8080 should run. Over here at phpMyAdmin, this is where the MySQL issue is going to come into play, because MySQL is now reading on 3307, and that's how the client connects. But the phpMyAdmin application that came with XAMPP is not configured to run to read towards 3307. It's configured to run towards 3306. So we'll need to go back to the XAMPP dashboard. Under the config, there'll be a phpMyAdmin config.inc.php, and in here will be our options for connecting to our server. So we'll need to go down and take a look, and here is where the host is being defined. We'll need to change this to be colon 3307 so that it reads from the correct port number on the local host. I do believe that's the only change we need to make. So if we save that and then go back and refresh, our XAMPP should be up and running and going. It's going to be kind of important to keep these port numbers in mind, because when we go into WordPress and maybe other applications in the future, we'll need to include these when we do the setup procedures. So I would probably suggest trying to do the port number changes last, although they are the most effective, and trying to figure out if you can stop Skype or stop another program. With that being said, if you've gotten this far in the video, again, if you just really were able to kind of start and stop these from the beginning and everything worked fine, then you were good to go, and you can go ahead and jump right into the htdocs folder where all the files are going to live, and go ahead and just kind of create your lab folder for the lab that we're going to start working on this week. So if you have any questions or ultimately get frustrated with XAMPP to try to get it up and going, just reach out to me and let me know. Sooner the better. That way we can try to work through it and figure it out. Biggest issues students run into is not putting it on the root drive. Remember, it's got to be on the root of the storage device that you're using. So you can't hide it down in users folder or somewhere else. It's typically one of the biggest issues. And then the port number conflicts. So other than those two things, XAMPP just kind of works, and once you start and stop it, that's really all you need it to do. And then when you serve up your files, you'll serve up your files through localhost in the browser. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and have a good one. Bye.